Everyone, my name's Ron Wakefield, local bit of housekeeping. Case of emergency. Up the stairs on the left or down the spiral staircase one floor down. Also made an effort to be sustainable today, so if I can ask you to please use the correct bins when you're disposing of food or beverages. Some quirks at RMIT that we wanted to remind you about are room numbering. So every building at RMIT has building number as the first number, the level as the second number, and the actual room number as the third number. So for instance, if you've got a session in building 8, level 9, 7, it'll be 897. Similarly, other buildings. There's 3 buildings that we'll be using for the Congress. This building, which is building 16 or Storey Hall, building 88, building 80, which is across the road, the town hall where we'll have the welcome reception this evening and the dinner on Wednesday night is down tram stops from here towards the river. And building 8 is the other building we'll be using, which is one I always say has the yellow pimples on it, next door to where my office is. There's overflow seating, as I said, upstairs and also for lunches on the 7th floor of this building. So we've got seating for 160 here, but there's another 100 seats upstairs. Please be ready for that. There's also, you'll recognise the student volunteers. They'll be wearing hats. And you'll be able to recognise me during the day if you need assistance. We started off with T-shirts for the volunteers, but we've moved to something more suitable for the Melbourne weather. I'd like to just thank the sponsors, MTIA, Built, City of Melbourne, LU Simon, Glodon, VBA, Alpha Solar Technologies, and Emerald, the sponsor for the Best Paper Award. Thanks for listening to all that housekeeping. I hope I'll be more relaxed as the conference proceeds. I'd now like to introduce Thane Garvey, a senior member of the Wurundjeri tribe, who's going to do the welcome to country for us today.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say Womanjika, which means welcome in my native Woiwurrung language. My name's Thane Garvey. I've worked at Wurundjeri Tribe Land Corporation for 11 years now. I did 8 years in cultural heritage work with archaeologists, recording sites and scarred trees, gold mittens and things like that. I moved on to land management and conservation, 3 years. That was beautiful as well. I loved that. And now I do more corporate stuff. So I lead negotiations representing Wurundjeri with more governments organisations. The background on myself. I'd like to start off by acknowledging my ancestors and my elders, past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge and pay respects to the 5 tribes that made up the Kulin. Kulin means me. We had the Wadawurrung to the west, Burrung to the northwest, Bunurong to the northeast, the Bunurong to the south. The Wurundjeri tribe was the 5th tribe within the Kulin Nations. We were based right in the centre of these 4 amazing tribes. Our boundary stretched from the Werribee River up to Mount Baw, across the Great Dividing Ranges, down past Woolburn, where the Yarra River starts its journey down at Mordialloy Creek. Our almighty creator and totem is Bunjil, the wedge-tailed eagle. Bunjil is the creator spirit of the Kulin Nations, and one day I hope to watch over my people with and my ancestors in the dreaming, when our spirits move on from one. See, our job is the people that walk on this land, to look after this land. The land is our mother. Without it, none of us would be standing here today. Aboriginal people lived with, never off the land. In return, the land gave us life, gave us a real life. A life where everything was equally important, nothing was ever. A life of peace, a life of dreams. I personally love doing these welcomes and smoking ceremonies and all the other stuff that I do. Because no matter how dark our recent history is, no limit to how far reconciliation can go. No limit on the love or the kindness that we can show to other people or give. And because of that, I do believe the future brighter as we come together, embrace our different cultures, instead of letting them divide us. We do have a long way to go, but let's not forget how far we have come in recent years. That's particular. With that being said, I'd like to conclude this welcome in my native Woiwurrung language. Wandun, Wurundjeri, Balak, Yaman, Kumbibik means we're all most welcome to the land of the Wurundjeri people today.
Thanks, Thane. I'd now like to introduce the Treasurer for Victoria, Tim Pallas. I just want to give a little bit of a background to him. He's been the Treasurer of Victoria since December 2014. He's also the Minister for Economic Development and the Minister for Industrial Relations. Mr. Pallas has been a fantastic friend to the construction industry in the time he's been Treasurer, and has been responsible for funding large amounts of infrastructure and infrastructure improvements that undoubtedly helps Melbourne stay as one of the most livable cities in the world. He's also been a big supporter of the university sector in recent times, where we've had significant trouble in the pandemic, and the Victorian government has been of real assistance to the university sector. And I'm pleased to see our Vice-Chancellor, Alec Cameron, here with the Treasurer. Thanks for coming along today, Vice-Chancellor. The other things that I wanted to just tell you about Mr. Pallas is, I don't know if he remembers this, but he's actually a friend of CIB. In 2009, he spoke at our W99 Safety and Construction Congress that was held here in Melbourne when he was Minister for Roads, and did a great job at our Industry Day for that conference. So thanks for joining us again, Treasurer. The other thing I found out that I didn't know about the Treasurer is he actually originally hails from New South Wales like me. And so he will be smiling today, I'm sure, as I am. And we're really happy to be able to welcome him here. Mr. Pallas, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that really warm welcome, and to Dane, thank you very much for the welcome to the country. Can I first of all indicate a lot of water has flown under the bridge since I spoke at my first CIB conference. I didn't have any more hair, I've got to tell you, back then, but what I do recall is that as an organisation you do so much for the collective wisdom and development of building industry and its movement towards innovation. So I do want to thank you very much for the warm welcome, and I'd also like to acknowledge, of course, the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and elders of any other Aboriginal communities or other communities indeed who may be here. So to Professor Alec Cameron, Vice-Chancellor and President of RMIT, Ron Wakefield, the Associate Deputy Vice-Chancellor International, Don Ward, Keith Hampson, and of course Corey Hannett, who I've got to put a big shout out to Corey. Corey's doing an amazing job for Victoria as the Director General of Major Transport Infrastructure Authority. I'm not sure that the Treasurer should be extolling the virtues of such a big spending authority. He does an exceptionally good job, and how far we've come as a state and the capacity to deliver on capital works, level of sophistication that we've developed over the years is in no small part due to Corey and his authority's work. Now, infrastructure is, of course, the engine of this state, and its value adds in threefold effect. It grows jobs, it stimulates economic growth, and it equips us for a growing population with a very big future. It's integral to Victoria's health and its recovery. That's why construction continued safely throughout the pandemic, because we knew that the most important thing that we could give this community throughout the trepidations of the pandemic was to keep the fundamentals of the architecture of our economy functioning. 1 in 10 jobs directly employed in the construction industry, making sure that work could occur safely, efficiently and consistently as best we could was one of our key considerations. And it's a strategy that's worked. It's enabled us as a state to take the opportunity of the bounce back from our periods of pandemic shutdown much more opportunistically and effectively. The outlook ahead for the construction sector is strong. That's not to say that there are not challenges ahead. I think many of you in this industry would be well aware of what they are. The constraints on resources and cost increases around those resources, skill constraints, and of course ultimately the need to diversify and grow this industry have been and will remain to be quite insidious problems that we have to collectively apply our minds to. Victoria's state investment in infrastructure is running at over $21 billion annually. If you look at all the projects that are commencing or continuing coming financial year that are funded by the state government, is $185 billion worth of projects are currently underway or due to start in the coming year. Victoria's spending over the next 5 years is expected to make up an impressive 30% of Australia's major public infrastructure pipeline. We've been called the engine of the nation's economy, and it's really not all that hard to see why, and particularly when you consider that figure. We've had projects at the start, middle and end of their life cycle, and it's clearly a demonstration that the government's planning, whilst a lot perhaps unfortunate for a treasurer, skewed more in the early part of their delivery than the end part of their delivery, it does demonstrate that we have a pipeline of activity and a desire to engage with industry in new and creative ways with a view to make sure that we can deliver projects efficiently, cost efficiently, but also in a timely and a quality constructed terms. Project ramping up, of course, is happening right across the board. We've got projects still in planning and early works, and that includes the suburban rail loop, Commonwealth Games and all the associated infrastructure that will be a necessary requirement of that event, the Geelong Fast Rail, Melton Hospital and the Melbourne Airport Rail. Projects that are ramping up to major construction include North East Link, Footscray Hospital, our big housing build and Frankston Hospital. Projects at peak construction include Metro Tunnel, the level crossing removal program and the Westgate Tunnel. Victoria's unprecedented $90 billion big build is underpinning a strong economic recovery and a strong jobs market. With the state's population projected to reach 10 million people by 2051, we don't have a lot of time to spare. If we want to preserve the livability of Australia's most livable city, or if perhaps more importantly, we want to recognise that we have to have a community that people appreciate and value, but an economy that produces opportunity for all, then we have to start now recognising the population pressures that this state will encounter. We know that according both to federal government budget numbers, and we know because of the state's own assessment on population growth, that we will very quickly resume being the fastest growing population centre in the nation. In doing that, we need to recognise that growth is not an end in itself. We have to basically be conscious of amenity and value to the community. So keeping our quality lifestyle in the face of this growth is a key requirement of the government's agenda. Landmark urban renewal, including Fisherman's Bend and Arden, are transforming old industrial areas into thriving new neighbourhoods. And it would be remiss of me, of course, not to mention our level crossing removal program, which I think is up to 68 level crossings removed by the end of this year, which is 18 ahead of schedule. I don't often get to crow about projects doing so well, but this is one of the signature infrastructure programs of this government. When we announced it back in 2013, there were many who said it just couldn't be done, and certainly not within the time frame. Not only can it be done, but it can be done within budget and well ahead of time. It's increasing safety, it's reducing traffic bottlenecks, and it's freeing up land for community space. And we have a target of 85 by 2025. So the total value of residential and non-residential building work in the pipeline is at a record high. It's up 25% through 2021. The pipeline of public infrastructure work is also extremely healthy, providing abundant opportunity for the construction sector in years to come. The Reserve Bank expects construction of new homes will stay solid for the next couple of years, with housing stocks growing faster than the population. And all of that is good news. But we do need to recognise that whilst we confront many problems in the construction industry, we also need to seize the opportunity of providing more supply into the market. An issue that I'm very much focused on. It's an issue that this government is committed to, and we will work with industry to ensure that occurs. We know the factors that face the challenges of high input costs, a shortage of skilled labour and rising interest rates, but overall its fortunes as an industry have been supported by a state that's recovering well after such a massive shock that we've encountered and of course the global economy have encountered. The state government basically made a decision when the pandemic hit to use our balance sheet to protect families, to protect businesses and to ensure that we could keep as much of the architecture of our building and construction industry and many other industries as well placed as we could for the upturn that would inevitably come as those restrictions on industry operation occurred. That growth has been quite profound. In fact, more substantial than anybody could have predicted. The Victorian economy is running about 50% faster than the rest of the nation in terms of growth at the moment. We know that the pipeline of public infrastructure work is already extremely healthy, providing abundant opportunities for the construction sector in years to come. And we know also that we will see, I think, that the sector faces those challenges that I mentioned before of high input costs, of shortage of skills, and of rising interest rates. They'll be managed in a way that will demonstrate the optimism and the certainty of the pipeline of work opportunity that enables this industry to have some confidence the future can be well managed. State government used its balance sheet, as I say, to support families, to support the economy, to create jobs, and importantly, a strategy that has been highly successful. 3.7% is the unemployment rate in this state at the moment. There's never been a number so low since records were kept. More importantly, we're seeing those areas of the economy that were most adversely affected by the pandemic, women, young workers, and insecure workers, seeing the fastest growth in terms of opportunity. We now have one of the highest participation rates in the labour market that we've ever seen. State final demand is now back above pre-pandemic levels. Gross state product per capita is expected to be higher than forecast prior to the pandemic in each and every year. The economy is predicted to grow by 3.25% in the coming financial year. My budget this year demonstrated in the 21-22 financial year, as it rapidly comes to a close, that our expected growth is running close to 4 times faster than New South Wales' annual GSP growth expectations. Now that won't last. It's a consequence in many ways of the journey that we've all been through as a state. But it does tell us in many ways that opportunity and optimism go hand in hand. Since the trough in employment in Victoria, which is about September 2020, an amazing 318,000 jobs have been created right across this state, smashing the target that we set back in September 2020 which was 200,000, so we're well and truly above that. Victoria's rapidly expanding population creates opportunities for investors, construction companies, and of course for operators. It creates those opportunities in sectors such as social infrastructure, energy and water, and many more. Best practice is important to this government. We make sure that every dollar we spend is working hard for Victorians. Under our new digital asset policy, we're creating a system where all project material is built and managed digitally and consistently. This ensures that the huge volumes of documents generated by our record-breaking infrastructure pipeline is accessible to project teams both now and in the future through planning and delivery. These things are important to the state government. They aren't going to ever appear on the front page of a newspaper, but they are very much front and centre of the thinking and the plans for the future that this government holds. If we can move to a digitalised and disciplined future about how we build assets, how we tender for assets, how we manage those assets over their life, then we get the great opportunity, I think, to have a clear, concise and consistent understanding of the challenges that we confront in those projects and the costs that are attendant with those challenges as well. This ensures, of course, in many ways that the challenges that we confront are preempted on better collaboration, planning, scheduling, and use of our precious construction resources. It boosts productivity and cuts the risk of unplanned costs, delays, quality issues, and duplication. It enables fewer construction errors and reduced safety incidents, and helps you to find solutions to problems before you even break ground. It pulls forward a single source of truth with all project information. We estimate that we can create cost efficiencies of up to 30%, dramatic savings that free up funds for other projects. We're excited about the potential to do more with less by enlisting new technologies and using the very best practice. Off-site construction is another useful tool to cut costs and improve building quality for government project teams. And the off-site construction guide that I'm launching today captures the lessons that we've learned on prefab and modularisation, and it makes them widely available as a practical resource for the private sector and government project teams, providing them with the advice on how to plan, procure and design a wide variety of prefabricated infrastructure assets. Digital innovation and cutting-edge technologies, we're leveraging our infrastructure investments for all Victorians. Housing for vulnerable Victorians and those on lower incomes is a major priority for this government, and it should be in all humane communities. Our big housing build is spending $5.3 billion over 4 years to build more than 12,000 social, affordable and moderate income homes for Victorians. The program includes a target of $1.25 billion to be spent across regional areas and targets homes for Victorians most in need. It includes people who are homeless, young people leaving state care, Aboriginal Victorians and those leaving the justice system. We've chosen to mix housing types because evidence shows that this triggers a series of benefits, including more stable communities. It also creates partnerships across community housing, government and private sector, whilst attracting private investment and better efficiencies. As well as this historic investment, we're streamlining the planning system, prioritising approvals for social and affordable housing. This is getting construction underway sooner, supporting economic recovery without compromising outcomes. Housing affordability challenges are particularly critical for younger and low-income Victorians. This creates a vicious cycle that can entrench the wealth gap and build in long-lasting harms from intergenerational inequality. That's why this needs to be addressed and why the government is making those investments so substantially at the moment. The Andrews Labor government is working to challenge this damaging trend and the resulting issues that it creates. Our support for home buyers falls into a number of interventions as we seek to solve different problems. But it includes, might I say, something like $1.1 billion worth of support for first home buyers each and every year. So, for example, the removal of stamp duty if your first home buyer is buying a home for $600,000 or less. Favourable stamp duty for off-the-plan purchases. The $10,000 first homeowners grant for buyers and builders. And the government launched the $500 million Victorian Home Buyer Fund, which has helped more than 1,100 Victorians to move into their home since its launch in October 2021. And it is a great initiative, one that we're seeing other jurisdictions copy, and indeed the Commonwealth copy with its shared equity scheme. These are important because they take the weight of repayment obligations off first home buyers. It also takes away that obligation for lenders' mortgage insurance, together with making it easier for them to get their deposit together. Since 2014, Victoria has been the leading clean energy jurisdiction in the nation, investing millions in renewable energy projects. Government is committed to sourcing 100% renewable electricity for all government operations by 2025. And for the wider state, including public and private, we set a statewide target of 50% renewable energy by 2030, and we're well on the way to meeting that, our target of 40% by 2025. In 2020, Victoria announced an unprecedented $1.7 billion energy package to create renewable energy hubs, improve crucial grid infrastructure, decarbonise our energy system and drive low emissions. The investment is bringing hundreds of thousands of jobs, lowering power prices and reducing emissions. Victoria has an abundance of renewable energy resources. Our $1.3 billion solar homes program has allowed record numbers of Victorians to enjoy the benefits of solar energy. More than 1 million Victorian households will have solar by the time this 10-year program wraps up in 2028. Electric vehicles are being made cheaper and more bountiful, and rooftop solar is rolling out across the state, backed up by community batteries. We've committed $100 million for initiatives including the Zero Emissions Vehicle Subsidy, Zero Emissions Bus Trial, Zero Emissions Vehicle Industry Development Plan. Through the Climate Change Act 2017, we've legislated our goal to achieve net zero emissions in Victoria by 2050. And in 2021, we announced our climate change strategy, which includes clear interim emissions reduction targets for Victoria. So it's not all that hard if you've got a will to do it. And as a government, I think we've not only demonstrated that will, but we've also demonstrated a willingness to bring the community on the journey with us by showing what the roadmap to success looks like. Renewable generation in Victoria jumped by 3.8 terawatt hours in 2021, the largest increase of its kind in our state's history. We expect our third target of 50% by 2030 to create around 24,400 jobs between 2020 and 2030. We were the leading Australian state for large-scale wind and solar generation in 2021, beating all others with 10,265 gigawatt hours, and Victoria continues to lead in 2022. In March, the Premier announced the release of the Victorian Offshore Wind Policy Directions paper. This is a plan to grow the state's offshore wind industry, supporting the transition to renewables and to create jobs for Victorians. As part of this announcement, the Victorian Government has committed to a 2032 offshore wind target for the state of at least 2 gigawatts. We've also set targets to reach 4 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity by 2035 and 9 gigawatts by 2040. These targets set the blueprint for this emerging industry, and they position Victoria as Australia's preeminent leader in offshore wind development. To finish, it's an exciting time to be in infrastructure. The Victorian Government isn't afraid of the challenges of the future, but those challenges, whether they be of climate, population change, or indeed social injustice, are ones we need to acknowledge and confront, not simply with words of support or concern, but with tangible policies and partnerships to make sure that we can right the wrongs and deal with the challenges that we confront. We know it is, in fact, a privilege to be working on these solutions with passionate and engaged individuals from both the public and the private sectors. We're committed to infrastructure that evolves and solves environmental, social problems, making cities and lives better for all Victorians. And we know that you, the players in this sector, are also excited by the opportunities. Otherwise, who gets up at 9 o'clock in the morning to listen to a politician talk? Here in Victoria, we know that we have some of the best infrastructure minds in the world with us at this moment, and who've been with us all along the journey. There are many challenges that we confront. The one thing that we can have enormous confidence in is that our collective wit and wisdom is so much better than us seeing each other as competitors. The sharing of learning and knowledge and the willingness to innovate is what sets this industry apart. So I do invite you here to partner with us, partner with each other, and to build the future, a prosperous future, a future where people can have pride in the livability of the state they've got, and to thank those who helped build that environment for them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pallas, and you can see why I'm proud to live in Victoria. I'd like you all to join me now in just recognising the people who are online. I forgot to mention them earlier, so please join me in welcoming our online audience. It's now my pleasure to introduce Professor Keith Hampson, the President of CIB. But you wouldn't expect me to have such a short introduction. I thought I'd share with you the benefit of some of my knowledge of Keith. I've known Keith since the early 1990s, not to give anything away about our age, when he returned from Stanford University and I returned from Princeton, and we presented together at a conference, and I guess we've collaborated ever since in one way or another. Keith's got a long history of working with the CIB since the 1990s, and many of you would know that he also received the Coordinators Award at the 2016 Congress in Finland. He's well known in Australia for his work as CEO of the Cooperative Research Centre for Construction Innovation and his work for the successor organisation, Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre. In fact, I'm sure you'll get sick of hearing about SBE NRC by the end of the 4 days, but Keith will be telling you about it. You also need to know that Keith is not, does have some disadvantage in that he was born in Queensland and he still calls himself a Queenslander. Now, I don't want to mention anything about this game that was on the TV last night, but you can please welcome Keith and improve his mood by giving him a good round of applause.
Thank you, Ron. There's umpires and there's fair umpires, and the game last night was the second. Look, at the end of the day, I want to say it was a wonderful match, and it's about the collaboration that the Treasurer talked about. So bringing people together around a football game, bringing people together around applied research for the built environment industry is a wonderful pleasure. I want to say thank you to Ron for his welcome. Thank you to the Victorian Treasurer, Tim Pallas, for his support, comprehensive support, I might say, of the construction industry. And we only have to look outside the windows at the infrastructure and building construction energy in this state of Victoria to see the benefits of a government supportive of the building and construction industry. It's been terrific. And I might say as well, echoing Ron's comments, that 12 years ago, he launched our CRC for Construction Innovations Guide to Best Practice for Safer Construction here in Melbourne. So he's been a long-term supporter of construction research, and we look forward to that continuing for a long time to come. I want to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and elders past and present. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to open the CIB 22nd World Building Congress in the world's most livable city, sunny Melbourne. And as president for the last 3 years, it's been my great honour to lead this organisation along with my fellow officers and members of the board. You will know these have been challenging times. The COVID pandemic has made it difficult for everyone and traumatic for some who have suffered bereavements and serious illness. So I acknowledge and pay my heartfelt respects to those who have worked through this period and for the hard work and commitment that sees us meeting in a face-to-face mode here and online today. 650 registrations is a huge, huge achievement. 300 or more are here face-to-face. Who would have thought that 12 months ago? Who would have thought that 6 months ago? I know that there were some who didn't think it possible 6 weeks ago. So here we are. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet and reconnect and engage in the vision of building a better future, the theme of this conference. I'm delighted that as we're meeting here, that I'm representing the Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre, and I want to say that bringing together industry, government and research partners across Australia has been my passion for 25 years. And I'm really pleased that our lead university partners in Curtin University in Western Australia, where we're headquartered, in Griffith University in Queensland, Western Sydney University, and of course RMIT are well represented in the papers and the leadership of the program over this next 4 years. But I'm even more delighted when Ron Wakefield, of course from RMIT, stepped up to host the World Building Congress back a couple of years ago. It was a brave call, and here we are today smiling, and I trust that on Thursday evening we'll continue to be smiling. It's a great achievement in the face of what was a risky situation. Ron, Erin and the RMIT team have done an amazing job in difficult circumstances over the past 2 years, but I'm sure that everyone attending in person or online, I'm not sure where to look for the online audience, Ron, where is the camera? But I'm delighted that we've been able to do this, and I'm sure that you'll find it an outstanding event. I particularly hope that you take the opportunity to network, to renew existing relationships, and importantly, to form new ones. Perfect. When I became president, or when I was elected president in Hong Kong 3 years ago, I set out 3 priorities to re-energise the CIB over my 3-year term. One was to reinforce the strong and effective CIB member services. 2 was about reinforcing the position of high quality, globally collaborative research as the core of our CIB. And thirdly, to strengthen global. On the first priority, I'm delighted that we're able to recruit Don Ward as our CEO. And can I share with you that we can't underestimate the benefit and leadership that Don has brought to this group this last 2 years, and we're delighted to have him go forward. Thank you, Don. We've also, of course, been benefiting from Michael Beam as Research Program Director and Debbie Gray as Office Manager, and delighted that Debbie and Mike are here today. Together they formed a strong and effective Secretariat team. The pandemic led to the closure of the Ottawa office, and so the Secretariat will remain a virtual office, at least for some time to come. But we're all pretty familiar with working online and working across the globe in different time zones. We've got a new website, more frequent informative newsletters, webinars, and improved marketing collateral. The quality of communications is excellent. And I thank Ron again in his role of Membership and Communications Committee Chair for overseeing this vast improvement. I think that the engaging and positive attitude of the team and their openness and transparency across membership, coupled with a sense of deep professionalism, is a credit to our CIB. On priority 2, the Program Committee Chair, Culla Kulkinen, and Michael Beam have led significant progress. Dialogue between the CIB board and the working commissions is much more regular and productive, and the new CIB Vistas initiative to be launched at this Congress will reinvigorate how our global network for collaboration promotes, collects, markets and disseminates global research and thought leadership on the future of the built environment and its impact on people and our planet. Packaged with other initiatives, the CIB Vistas will be a key in promoting our modern, multi and interdisciplinary research and innovation agenda, supporting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Special welcome also to our emerging leaders in new coordinators who have stepped up to lead invigorated task groups and missions. I hope they'll be galvanised by the Vistas program and lead the way in delivering value, not only for their own commission researchers, but more widely for CIB members and the global industry and research community. My thanks to Albert Chan, Chair of the Student Chapter Committee, who has fostered continued growth amongst our student chapters, secured CIB funding for them, and re-energised our student awards, including the new one for Best Dissertation. And congratulations to the first winner of this award, Dr. Esmail Eftekarian, who completed his PhD at Western Sydney University just last year. Albert's also worked with Srinath Pereira from Western Sydney University with a new subcommittee to launch the Early Career Researcher Network. Important. This focused group has quickly engaged with over 100 ECR members and is a very exciting and valuable network for CIB to support the development of future research talent and leadership in the built environment across the world. In this sense, I'm delighted that the CIB board has accepted my offer to endow a perpetual award for best practice industry collaboration for CIB early career researchers. On the third priority, the global pandemic undoubtedly impacted our membership. We've responded by improving communication and the value proposition for existing members, as I've already mentioned. We've also initiated a strategy to diversify our revenue sources to reduce our dominant dependence on direct membership subscriptions. And I'm most grateful to Vice President Mark Hastak, who has led this important strategy development. The Early Career Researcher Network I mentioned is also a great opportunity to build our membership. I'm looking forward to working with you all and leveraging this initiative to benefit our early career researchers and our research commissions. We're building closer relationships with the United Nations and other organisations to strengthen our relevance and strengthen leadership. I thank the officers of the board, including Shalidra Percy, the CEO of Brands in New Zealand, and Peter Paul van Veen, the Business Development Director at P&O in the Netherlands, neither of whom who could be here for this conference, who served us unswervingly as Vice President and Treasurer respectively. Peter Paul's work has been terrific in times of uncertainty over this past 2 years in particular. The Secretariat of the Board have been terrific, and their excellent efforts over the last 3 years have kept us vibrant and engaged. And I wish the presidential nominee, Mark Hastak, and the new board every success in the triennium. But it's the personal relationships formed in CIB which have been the greatest benefit and pleasure for me. My long association with this organisation, which has fundamentally nurtured my own professional career and has played a significant role in many of my personal relationships and friendships. I plan to stay actively involved in the board and CIB activities as immediate past president and offer my support wherever it's welcome. I trust that in this capacity, I'll be able to catch up with many more of you over the next 2 years on a face-to-face mode across the globe. Importantly, members and future members as we build this base. In closing, I reiterate my deep thanks for the trust placed in me to lead CIB over the past 3 years. It's been a true honour. To echo Treasurer Tim Pallas's speech, it's an exciting time to be in building and construction research. The theme of this Congress is building our future. And I encourage you to meet and reconnect and have a great 22nd CIB World Building Congress here in sunny Melbourne, and let's build our futures together. Thank you.
Now we're going to have a short video presentation from the Major Transport Infrastructure Authority, who are our platinum sponsor for this Congress. Now my pleasure to Storey's the Victorian Director General of the Major Transport Authority. Been the Director General since 2014, overseeing a massive pipeline of transport infrastructure projects. He's responsible for the delivery of some of Australia's largest transport projects, including the North East Link Road Tunnel, Metro Rail Tunnel, which is under the road out here in Swansea. He's also been responsible for the removal of 85 level crossings, and the Treasurer didn't explain the magnitude of that, but Victoria's rail network was developed along ours was such a feature of our movement, and so there was no grade separation of the railway and the roads, which caused a lot of chaos. So Corey's team have been making that grade separation happen in Melbourne and made a huge difference to congestion in the city. So Corey's, and this makes me worry for him, but his portfolio of projects currently under construction or in planning total $80 billion. The huge portfolio that he's responsible for, and I'm happy to say that while I can't top the Treasurer's superlatives about Corey, he's a really driven and motivated leader, and he's also, I guess, boosted the infrastructure capacity in Victoria and put a lot of effort into training and developing our contractors through the portfolio that he leads. Please join me in welcoming Corey Hannett.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for your kind words, Ron. So today I'm here to give an update on Victorian Government's Big Build program, so where we're at, what through, and I've got a bit to cover. The Big Build, 165 projects of a target investment of $90 billion. And this financial year, we had planned to spend about $11 billion and very close to that mark. Actually, last month we spent nearly $1 billion in a month. So just goes to show if you can put enough people into a program, you can certainly have a big impact on the construction industry. We also have so far delivered since 2015 nearly 170 million man hours. So that sort of equates to about, at the moment, about 50,000 people indirectly and directly working across the program. This slide just simply shows what government's expenditure on infrastructure was. You can see the three horizontal lines and the one to the right, where we're going to be. The Treasurer also spoke about himself, but compared to where we were only 7 years ago, we're three to fourfold than what we had been spending. So I think the key question is for us, why are we building what we're doing? And I think the very most simple explanation have been giving for quite a while now is that we expect that Melbourne by 2050 will be around about 10 million people. If you go to somewhere like London, the population, just see what infrastructure they've got in place, we've got a long way to go. And whether it's level crossings, road projects, rail projects, they're all needed. It's a matter of obviously what is prioritised, but we certainly have an enormous agenda to get to once we get the population of sort of around the 10 million people in Melbourne. Again, talking to London, in London their rail network is significant compared to ours. We opened up our first rail city loop in 1985. London opened their first one up about 100 years ago. And if you look at a place like Singapore, where they've been building new rail tunnels for the last 30 years, essentially someone like Singapore has continued to build rail tunnel after rail tunnel, and we're only on our second rail tunnel, which will open about 40 years after our first. So it just sort of goes to show what is happening around, what has happened around the world, and what the expectations on us are going to be. On a simple stat at the bottom of that slide also, in terms of stats, we were spending about 20 years ago $800 per person. It's now sort of cranking right up to growing closer to 2,000 per person per capita. Construction highlights for this year. You can see a good-looking photo there of the Echuca-Murray Bridge up on the Murray River to Echuca. A second river crossing in 100 years, being well needed, was opened up. We actually, it's quite a good story to this project. In the middle of our shutdowns last year, we were faced with a dilemma where the construction workforce on different sides of the bridge were coming from different states. They couldn't work together because of they couldn't get to one another because of the shutdown, so we were able to keep the project going by working with two different construction crews on either side. They did a fantastic job of actually finishing the project on time, within budget, and did it reasonably safely with all the COVID risks associated with that. We've turned on those two big enormous tunnel boring machines, Bella and Vita, on the Westgate Tunnel, so we've done nearly 30-something% of the tunnelling now, which has been really good. Those tunnel boring machines are actually the second biggest diameter in the globe, so they're by no small feat, just an engineering convenience. They're actually something, what I call engineering wonder. They're very large, they're very big, they're very complex, and they're working very well. Everybody who drives around along the M80 can see that project's now finished. The Eakers Road section, which is why they needed extra lanes on the M80, and one section to go further down to Wakefield as part of that project. On the Monash Freeway, there's a little bit of work to go, but basically the upgrade, the extra 50-odd kilometres of extra lanes is finished, which has gone really well. And also the North East Link early works, we had to relocate a heap of services out of the road for the tunnel boring machines on North East Link. Also, now this is that photo there is actually not far from out the front of the building here. You can see the station cabin It's where the photographer has taken the photo, and you can see the tunnelling behind there. So the tunnelling on Metro Tunnel actually is finished. The station caverns, the excavation now has been finished. So now it's about fitting out the equipment rooms and getting it ready for test trains for next year. But it's certainly been a very, what I call a very big quieter achiever. Lots of work's been happening under the ground out under Swanson Street. Also, you can see works at Parkville and at Domain and in North Melbourne. But the team did an excellent job of actually being able to construct the tunnel alignment through the middle of the CBD and actually minimise inconvenience to everybody, which has been very pleasing to see it go so well. Also, Murray Basin Rail Project, we've been finishing extra packages, but also got some extra work to do. Geelong Fast Rail Project, so getting that team set up and get that planning going, but also getting ready for works for next year. And then, of course, there's 11 level crossings to remove this year. We've removed 64 to date, 4 more to go by the end of the year to make it 68. And the Treasurer spoke about that earlier. The level crossings themselves are very complex pieces of infrastructure to build. It involves not just removing a level crossing, it upgrades power, you have to upgrade signalling, you've got to just about rebuild most stations which are interfaced with the projects. And you've also got to do this work under a live rail environment and a live road environment, so you don't get much rest in terms of how you do it. A lot of the work's done on weekends and night works and shutdowns, and that's been the way we've been able to do those works. I'll never forget the Upfield railway line. We had 4 crossings to remove in a row. We finished not last year, the year before in 2020, and normally what we would do was work offline, get all the columns. It was a sky rail we build all the columns offline, get the structures up in the air and get it done. But what we decided was to actually, a standing start, we removed the 4 crossings in about 12 weeks, from closing the tracks to ripping the tracks out, the overhead power out, getting cracking with all the civil works for the footings, the columns, the superstructure, and putting the rail bridge back. And look, if you ever want to, I recommend having a look at some of the level crossings we have done, whether it's Sky Rail for Murrumbina or the one up around Coburg. Just seeing how much public open space we create and what a legacy they leave on the community. They're just a fantastic outcome. And then we have other types of level crossing rules where they're not rail over road, where they're either rail under road or where we have different treatments altogether. But very big small sport of works, sort of up around, I think, $14 billion worth of works in the level crossing space over the last 6 and a bit years. North East Link, so this is now, I'm talking about procurement, what have we got going forward? So we awarded the big tunnelling PPP last year for North East Link. We've now got the secondary packages. There's a north and south package plus an east and a west, so there's 4 extra packages to go. That will take up a lot of the market's time and valuable resources. Melbourne Airport Rail Link, we've got a few packages in the market as well. Same thing, we've got early work started, and that project in itself very exciting, very important for Melbourne, and also will take up valuable resources to make that project up as we need to. And then we've got the major road upgrades, or MRPVs, and level crossings as well. So there's about 30 odd road projects right now which are in the delivery phase. And I mentioned the level crossings to finish 68 by the end of the year, and get the balance of 85 by 25, so which is not that far away as well. This is just a slide that I used to, I suppose, provide a bit of sobering acknowledgement of just how challenging big infrastructure projects are. Put simply, nearly 400 projects we looked at around the world. They basically increased their cost by nearly 60%. I think the other stat which isn't there is that about 80% of projects programs also blow their time by something like 60 to 80% of the time. So what that basically is telling us is that brownfields infrastructure project, which is the bulk of the program that I'm talking about here, it's extremely challenging, and you know, we have to be very cautious and sensitive to actually, when we give advice to government, that we're confident that we've got a deep understanding of all the associated risks, and from time to time things will go wrong. But it's certainly, if you look at the volume of the work we've been doing for quite a period of time now, and what we are doing, the complexity, the sheer, the need, the resourcing we've got, it's a horribly risky environment, but I think we're going reasonably well, and just not lost on me that we shouldn't just forget about what does happen around the world. Project complexity. So one thing that has certainly, in my experience, geared right up since I started working in my job from nearly 10 years ago. There's an expectation from the community when you're building infrastructure, a few suburban areas, that just not acceptable to be ploughing through thousands of homes. You actually have to go and deliver tunnels, whether it's Westgate Tunnel, Metro Tunnel, or North East Link, or Suburban Rail Loop. And tunnelling in itself, obviously we've got world experts, which are here with us now doing all their work. It's very complex. And in Melbourne in particular, we have some of the greatest, most difficult ground conditions in the world. If you go to Sydney, they can, their tunnel boring machines up there as part of Sydney Metro, or some of the road jobs, certainly can plough through their excavation with far more ease than what we have here in Victoria. We've got hard rocks, we've got very sloppy clays, we've got you name it, and the ground conditions are varied, and depending on where you are, you're guaranteed to have variability through there. So these tunnel boring machines that we use have to come from around the world, they have to be designed in a way they can encounter different ground conditions, which has been a bit risky, but I must admit the Metro Tunnels machines did really well. The Westgate tunnelling boring machines are going really well as well, fingers crossed. What else is what we have in terms of challenges? Just the sheer volume of work. You've seen by the graphs and what I've been saying, what the Treasurer said before, there is an enormous amount of work in Victoria, enormous amount of work in New South Wales, across the eastern seaboard, also Queensland, plus Western Australia. And we're talking about how we're all doing these big tunnelling projects now, so we're competing for the same resources which come from a global pool of people. I think as we are growing and developing our skills, you know, we are basically training engineers and project people to be on the world scale, which is fantastic, but we are under enormous amount of pressure. And the more international expertise that we can get, the better. It's just hard to get because there's a global shortage right now of project expertise around the world. Certainly, it's what it does do. It provides a great opportunity for our less inexperienced and our younger people, and also experienced people here as well, to develop the industry in Victoria, if not Australia, to cope with that. Industry participation. Oh, sorry, there's one dot point I missed on the previous slide. I just want to call out something that it's not so crash hot, but it needs to be acknowledged, is that diversity in our industry is terrible. All my counterparts that run construction companies are guys. There's very few, so there's one female chief executive now. I look at all the 5 CEOs that work for me, they're certainly come from a construction background, but again, no female participation in that level there. And then I look at all the projects in general across the program, with all the project directors and all the senior executives across the teams. Diversity is a major problem in our industry. My infrastructure minister, Jacinta Allen, has certainly been on my back about this for the last 7 years. Look, we obviously have some programs in place, but I don't want to stand here today and make out that it's actually what it is. It's exactly what it isn't, and what it shouldn't be, what it shouldn't be. With diversity, can have a whole heap of benefits to what we're doing and how we do it, and that is just something that I just can't let go of, and we're working actively with that issue. So how do we actually help the construction sector with getting projects better or doing them more weller? I think that the key to it is it's the front-end engagement of a project. It's the decisions about how it's procured, the decisions about how much infrastructure assessments done, decisions about design, innovation, and driving the successful outcomes of the project. So the front-end engineering is key to this, site investigations, the engineering work itself, and defining the project. So there's an evolution of a project from the start to the finish and how you design and build it. Sorry. And over that time frame, a lot of information is grown, developed, learnt, and the more work you do up front, the more work you can actually define a project with the private sector, the more successful it will be. Certainly from a point of view of some of the bigger jobs that we've procured lately, but North East Link in particular, where we nearly invested $100 million per bidder for their bids, and just making sure that we incentivise and support the construction sector. We've actually had to do that, and also the government has also a major skills guarantee. So in terms of not just the engineering or the technical work I'm talking about, that the government's got an expectation on our projects that we have Indigenous employment targets, we have diversity targets, we have targets for disadvantaged people, so forth, and which are very good, what I call opportunities for the projects themselves to grow legacies for the future. I think put down simply, what I'd say about this slide, it simply is that the key ingredient to success on a project is having the right culture. It comes from myself to my CEOs, to the CEOs of the construction company's culture, to project directors, to everybody working on the jobs. And in terms of success, if you can get the culture right, get the procurement right, you know, you can sort of do anything. On level crossings, you know, we've had a massive turnover of work. We've trained an enormous amount of people. It's been very challenging work in itself, working night and day, 7 days a week for the last sort of 6 or 7 years. And I must say that, you know, cultures for that program, I think it's gone really well. Not that we can let up on that. We're as good as what we are today. Tomorrow's a new day, and we have to go back and do better than what we have in the past. But certainly from my point of view, you know, key integral part of my job is to ensure that I'm confident that we've got the right people with the right teams, with the right experience, but also, most importantly, with the right cultures and the right attitudes. Mental health certainly is a big issue for the construction sector. When I was a young engineer and I started work, I'll never forget this. Basically, the superintendents used to bully the young engineers, and the young engineers were made to start first and finish last, open the gates, close the gates. So I got blamed for most things that went wrong, and it wasn't, certainly my experience on site, the first 5 years of my working life was, the work was fantastic, but where you fitted in terms of a young engineer, it was pretty poor. It wasn't very good at all. So in terms of the construction sector, people work long hours. People work under a lot of pressure. Construction sector isn't a sector that is what you'd call, from a financial point of view, that rewarding. In the last 30 years since I've been working, tens and tens of construction companies have gone bankrupt. So you work in an area where you're under pressure to give a price to build a project. You build a project to a price, to a program, and then you go on to the next project and do the same thing. The construction industry is very clear in terms of mental well-being, and various studies which have found that in terms of the industry norms, the construction sector is sort of double what it should be for mental health and well-being. I think from the suicide rate, it's 6 times the suicide rate. So there's a long way to go with the sector in terms of actually how people are cared for. But what we'll call CICT, Construction Industry Cultural Task Force, which was set up in 2018, which is sort of taking this initiative to both the private sector and the public sector. But it's certainly you know, significant time and key investment from the right people around Australia, and these are drivers which we're actually trying to do. It also is linked to, if a construction company, for example, is successful, jobs usually tend to, if they're successful, the jobs go well, the people actually better experience. The problem with it is when projects go bad and how people get affected. So I sort of can't stress enough just how important it is to plan a project properly. It has so many different effects by if it doesn't run that way. So that's an update from me today. I think I'll be part of the Q&As a bit later, so you can more than happy to answer some more questions. But just finally, what we're doing in Victoria, I think, is it's a fantastic legacy, and you know, the infrastructure we're delivering as the city grows, it's well needed, and with a bit of luck, we can keep actually delivering a big pipeline for quite a while. So thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Corey. That was very informative about the amount of work that's going on in Victoria and the pipeline for the future. Corey's indicated that he'll stay around at 11 o'clock after morning tea in this room with Don Ward to answer questions. And I know Derek Walker's already told me he's got a lot of questions for Corey, so I'm sure there's others as well who have questions for Corey. Don Ward just wants to make a couple of announcements before morning tea.
Good morning, everybody. Hi. Wow, how good to see you after all this time. Two and a bit years in this job, and it's the first time in front of a real group of people. So there you go. That's a bit harsh on one or two small meetings, but first time at a real conference. What I wanted to say was that many of you know Michael Bean. Mike's been Programme Director since the start of 2020. Well, he needs to go back to his academic career full-time as of the end of this year. So first of all, I wanted to pay tribute to Mike's work, and he will continue working with CIB in many capacities, but he'll be in the role of Programme Director up until the end of this year. But the second thing I wanted to, and I want to express massive thanks. I mean, he along with Calla Cacken and as Keith Hampson mentioned, have done a huge job in reconnecting really the commissions with the board and the membership of CIB. But what I wanted to say, this is creating an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for a person or more than one person to succeed Mike. And whether you're a young researcher, young early career researcher in the room, whether you're from a member organisation of CIB, I'd encourage you to come and chat to us. Come and chat to Mike anyway, you know, on our stand at the back there. Come and talk to me about any ideas you have for the future of CIB. But if you're thinking, well, yeah, that's a fantastic development opportunity for someone in my organisation, and I think we could employ 2 or 3 people, all in part-time capacities, probably, maybe full-time, but I think there's an opportunity to make it a mutually beneficial relationship with a number of organisations in different parts of the world to run aspects of our Programme Director role. So do come and talk to me if you're interested, as either personally or through your organisation, because I want us to spend the next 4 days, amongst many other things, talking about ideas and how we develop the CIB into the next era. So you now know who I am, what I look like, and if you don't know Mike Beam, you're going to get to know him very soon. So come and find us over there with Debbie, or in any of the commission sessions, in all the other sessions. I'll pop up from time to time, particularly with the Q&A and discussion with some of our keynote speakers over the next 4 days. So you won't get rid of me, but for now, thank you very much, Ron.
So now we'll break for morning tea. We'll reconvene at 11 o'clock for the Q&A session, and there's also some parallel sessions going in those rooms with the 3 numbers 889 or 8611. You'll get a chance to see a good part of RMIT because the rooms are scattered all over the place because they're rooms with live video feed so that we can make sure our friends online can participate in the sessions. Thank you all for your attention, and let me just put my green hat back on again. So if you've got any questions, I'll be out in the foyer. Thank you, everyone.